So, welcome to the Church Collective podcast. Today we have Sean Curran with us. What's
Woo.
up, Sean?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy to be here.
First question, just what's up with you right now? What are you working on?
Oh man. Uh okay, beginning of the year. I actually just finished up a lot of prep for this conference that I just did. It was Passion 2020. Uh Kind of one of the most incredible experiences of my life, honestly. There's just so many young people in the same place pursuing the same thing, and it was breathtaking. So I'm almost in like recovery mode in a sense, just still digesting a lot of that. But so in the wake of that, though, I'm prepping for some new stuff, doing a lot of tour prep. I'm going to be going out with Ren Collective in 3 weeks now. So a lot of the gear that I just got isn't quite road ready. So I just went to New Jersey to pick up this piano that I've been chasing for years. And this guy, his name's Brian. Thank you, Brian. You're awesome. He sold me this piano for real cheap. And I found it on eBay. I said, guys, or Brian, if you could just take this off and let me come up and grab it from you, it'd be amazing. So I drove up with my wife and friends and picked up this piano, and then we spent the day in New York, and it was fun. But so, anyways, I got to get that piano tour ready. So I'm doing some stuff like that, always doing some songwriting, and just doing church stuff. It's gonna be good. January and February are gonna be fun.
So, what was um, Passion 2020? Is it? It's never been at on January 1st before, has it?
So I don't know the whole legacy, but I'm because it's been a movement for quite a while now, and they've gathered for over 20 years. But I'm pretty sure that this is the first, if not one of the first, that it's been over New Year's. So it usually starts on the first. This past conference it started on the 31st, so we like rung in the new year together, and I think that was particularly special because we're also bringing in this new decade, and so I think that ended up being a lot of the pulse and the heartbeat behind the conference is trying to wrap our heads around this offering to God, saying, we're coming into a new era, we're coming into a new decade. How do we do this your way? What does that look like? Like, how can we give our hearts to that purpose to say, hey, these next 10 years, we want them to be about kingdom things. We want them to be about eternal things. Do rearrange our hearts in a way that align with that. We want to see like you see, we want to participate in the God stuff. So to have a whole bunch of students hungry for chasing that. Man, it truly could, So I that it was just really special. But yeah, so it started on New Year's Eve. We got to ring it in together, and really special.
Yeah, it's kind of took me by surprise because like I saw okay they're doing something New Year's Eve
Mm.
on New Year's Eve, and then I was like, oh, maybe it's just a small little New Year's Eve party, and then I started realizing the magnitude of it because last year it was in like four different
Yeah,
locations, right?
that's right.
And then so this time it was just
Mm.
all in one heat. What was it? Mercedes-Benz Arena.
Yeah. So Mercedes-Benz is the new stadium in Atlanta, where it's the Falcon Stadium. I only had been one other time for Atlanta United soccer game, but it's a pretty big place. They ended up last year sometime, or maybe a year and a half ago, they tore down the old dome, Georgia Dome, and replaced it with this thing. And it's big. You can fit 70,000 or something people in there. So the past couple years, the conference has been spread out. A bunch of different locations happening at the same time. But this year, they just brought everybody to one place. So that was cool too. It kind of felt all the good things about church camp, you know.
Yeah.
You could feel that, like the being on the same pilgrimage, you know, being so aware with in kind of a collective way what God's doing over the course of a few days. I mean, that's one of the most powerful things about those camp experiences I had growing up. Is that you're just putting some intentionality around being available for God. And so there's this personal thing that's happening, but then there's this communal, collective thing that's happening. And when you're feeling the same way, it can just lead to a beautiful posture. So yeah, we were all together for two days, pretty intense. There's a lot of stuff going on. And then yeah, there was this really cool initiative thing that happened too, where we raised $1.5 million for this pursuit of translating the scriptures into every known language in the world. So that's pretty special. Like this tangible thing. College kids they don't have a lot of money. I mean, I'm not in college. I still don't have a lot of money, but when you get 70,000 of them together, it's really powerful. Even just a small offering from one person can go a really long way.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. It was a crazy few days.
Yeah, that's really neat. For that million, for the, getting the Bible out there is I'd love to kind of hear, my role here at my church. I kind of do a little more than worship and kind of look at a lot of stuff. I'd love to kind of hear what do you think is the thought behind, like, why did college students, why do younger people, they seem to rally behind like tangible causes, and I feel like that's more and more of a thing. Like, could you maybe speak to that a little bit and kind of talk about how that feels for you guys?
Oh man, the tangible I think is really important. I mean, even from like a philosophical place, which is very intangible, but like we that is what we are. We're spirit, and we're human, and we're dirt, and soul. It's important we live and breathe in something that is physical, and I think it would be a tragedy if we spent all of our energy thinking about our theology and just sitting in our rooms. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't. And that's really, I mean, that's important for me. A lot of how I spend my time is in a certain mystical space. It's songwriting, it's creating, and it's real impactful on the inner world. And I totally believe in that. I mean, but I want that to be paired with a growing consciousness, a growing sight that sees need and reaches towards it.
Yeah.
I think that would separate God's people. That's a kingdom mindset,
Yeah.
So that's an action. That's something that should be woven into the people of God. And if it was on a higher degree, I think that the world would not only take notice, but the world would start to change. And so, I mean, it was a pretty radical idea. I don't have all the stats in front of me, but to be able to see that, hey, from what we can tell, these are the known languages that we have documentation for, that they don't have even just one passage of scripture in their language. And man, we think over this decade, with some funding and some intentionality, like, that's something that I just, this generation, it'd be real great to lean towards that and make the right kind of noise. That's the right kind of noise to me. We got a whole bunch of other noise going on. So anyways, those are some of my current thoughts,
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
it.
that's fantastic. Yeah, I'd love to hear too. You said you're still kind of coming down off the mountain after, as the time of this recording, we're about a month away from. It's been about a month since you guys had that conference.
Yeah, true.
That's a
True.
real tangible thing for a lot of worship leaders. They maybe come out of like a fantastic service and feel like that mountaintop
Mm-hmm.
high, and maybe talk a little bit like what do you do while you're coming down, and what does that mean, and how does it shift you, and like what do you do when you come from moments like that? How do you use it for growth and moving forward?
Wow. Yeah, I think in my life I have these pillars, and I also tend to do everything pretty slowly. So when I do have an experience that seems to be profound, it's important for me to take some time to just sit with it, to stare long enough to see what is actually there, and because some things hit you right away and some things take a little time to permeate and to kind of, you want to steep in them. So that's almost like a a certain contemplative practice almost. Just let me reflect on this in a way that is meaningful, uh, especially in spaces like that, or on a Sunday morning. The first impact of something could be, it almost has the hype side of it, and that's not always bad, but a lot of times the depth of things they have a different nature. And so I want to be in tune with the I want, I want to dig into the well that God's forming in me, and I need to be available for that. And so, yeah, I've taken the last couple weeks, and part of my time with God is just reflecting on these really big, bold, powerful deposits that I felt like He did in me and in others. And I want it to shape my future. I want them to shape my, I don't want it to just be a moment. And moments are profound. I think they're some of the most beautiful things. Even as a worship leader, a lot of times I'm trying to be present to the little moments that God wants to do, not just singing the lyric, not just singing the structure of the song, but moments are what make up good conversation. It's the only true test of what, if you're even having a conversation. You have to have the response. You have to have the space for the interaction. You have to not know exactly what someone's gonna say. So I love moments, but I want to have the time to reflect on them and let them stick to me so that they kind of get into me.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
How did you transition from Bellary to Passion? Were you already a member of Passion, like the church, or?
I the in a sense, when I hear that question, it just reminds me of how little I had to do with that process in terms of my choice, or it was just a life happening, happening upon me. I think Bellary started in Orlando. So I grew up in Florida. I ended up going to college at UCF in Orlando. And at some point towards the tail end of my first year of school, I started working at a church. And I guess it was more or less my first official sort of framework around having a job at church, or whatever that means. I was learning all that. So I was overseeing a lot of the crew side of things, and then so which just spilled over into music and worship and for the student ministry and for the college ministry and sort of that whole umbrella, you know. And we just started writing. I really feel, and I don't know if I've even experienced this the same since then, but I really felt like there was a couple years where God he just kissed this season. You know, I don't really know how to describe it, and I've tried before, but I was just thrown into a community that seemed to have such a heightened awareness of what God was doing, and there was so much growth. There was so much, again, tangible presence of God, movement of God, sweet time. But to me, I didn't really know what to do with it. And whenever I feel like that, I moved to music to process and to write. And so I started writing these songs about it. And that basically formed what became I guess a band. You know, Bellary became like a more formal expression. But we were writing songs with our church for 4 years or so, and then we started traveling a lot, and we spent 3 years or so traveling. I mean, over 200 days a year, you know, and it just popped like that. And man, whenever you reach that threshold of being gone more than you're home, you just really have to start figuring that out. Like, not that it's just an observation. Like for everybody, it's different, but it's a threshold that things and how to balance. And so for us, a lot of those conversations led us to thinking about moving to a new place, and so that's what brought us to Atlanta. So the first couple years I was in Atlanta, I was still doing the Bellary stuff full on, and a beautiful season, but like there was like this 6-month window where we could just feel God pulling us into new space, you know. And I say it now like it just happened, but it didn't. I mean, it was hard stuff, man. Like, first of all, because we were all best friends, so when you start to feel something close, for us, it was really feeling like something was dying, you know. It's just like you have to unstick yourself from something that you've been in and people that you learned the presence of God with. You know, I hadn't, for a lot of us, this was our only window into worship leading. Like we did it with each other, you know, we were super close. And then so that was really painful. And then we were also really young. So I think something I'm still learning is the identity stuff, you know, as a creator, as a creative, as an artist, or just as anybody in general. If you let your identity get too caught in the crosshairs of things that are just things that you've created or expressions that you're a part of, that's not you. You know, that's something that's a byproduct of a relationship between you and God. But if you get all that out of sort, you got a lot of healing to do in the inner world. So I think I spent about a year sifting through that, feeling like I put all of this energy into something, and now it's just gone. And does that mean that I'm gone? Does that mean that like how much of it was worth it? You know, you just start asking yourself these really tricky questions that take some time, you know. And honestly, I had to kind of find the secret place again, like that space where I'm not writing songs to prove anything to anybody. I'm not writing songs to fix anything, you know, that put all this pressure on a song when you turn it into the label. Like, it has to be the song that fixes the stuff. That's just not that. It's not a lot of good that comes from that. So I know I'm getting long-winded, but basically, like, I'm in this transition. I was in this transition of, I would say, coming home, you know, me just communing with God again, and letting a song come from a simple pursuit, you know, in a simple place, and a vulnerable place. And that was about a year in the making. And what happened during that time, and the goodness of God, it's so cool how a lot of these things line up. But I was home more, you know, I was home a lot more. I mean, honestly, everything just kind of stopped. And so it gave me this opportunity to sow into church again, you know, to make friends again, to be a community, a kingdom community that's local. And so then God started to stitch us into just life with people and church, and it was Passion City Church. And so I guess it's been about 3.5 years now of a lot of intentional time, where that's my wife and I, that's our church, and those are our people. And when we are home, this is the community that we serve. And the songs that I'm writing are all connected and stitched into what God's doing in our city and through our house. And I mean, at this point, I'm now connected in a more formal way, where I guess I'm like an artist through the passion expression. And that's it's a beautiful thing. But I didn't want to downplay the how hard the journey's been.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What's your writing process like, and how has it changed or evolved through like Bellary to Passion to, you know, your solo stuff?
Man, for me, I think when I think about writing, and I think about a lot of my friends that write, I feel like there's this craft side, you know, and then there's more of the pilgrimage side, and the excavating side. And people are good at usually lean towards one or the other. And so for me, I've always just been someone who kind of flows. And songwriting is, I rarely know where I'm going as I rarely go into a song trying to write about something. I usually kind of discover that in the journey of it. I always find my way out different than I found my way in. To me, it's very much a part of my communion with God. I mean, I feel like God brought me music to teach me how to talk to him, you know, to teach me how to pray, to teach me how to, align with the pieces of heaven in me, and let my spirit speak, and all of that. So I think the journey has been, for me personally, trying to put more intentionality around the craft side of things, strengthening those muscles. I use that with just have that practice, have a better handle on that practice, different techniques to kind of crack things open. Some people have more of a proficiency in lyrics. Some people have more of a proficiency in just musicality and sort of melody. And so I fall, the things that come the quickest for me are going to be just a feeling, and like a melodic thing. And so I usually try to align myself when I do co-writes. I usually align myself with people who have a strength in like a slightly different skill set. So, because lyric for me, I really enjoy, but it takes me the longest, you know. And so, I love writing with other people. I love writing alone too. I think when I talk about songwriting on a panel of people, I'm usually the one who advocates. Everyone's like, write with everybody, write with everybody. I'm usually advocating for writing by yourself at least once in a while. Because I think, man, so many things. It's very exposing. You know, it shows you what you're good at, it shows you what you're not. I think there is also a degree of, it's like all through high school when you have a English paper to write and your mom basically vicariously writes it through you. And then you get to college and you got to write that English paper and you just got to do it. Like it's the first time where you're like, oh, you know, I need to use my brain, you know, and I need to think. I need to think my thoughts and I need to mull around. I need to figure out what I'm trying to say by figuring out what I'm trying to say. You know, what am I actually wrestling with here? And let that process inform a melody or a lyric. I think that's, man, that there's a lot of growth potential there. And it might produce a song that has a personal tone to it that I think we could have a little bit more of in worship music, honestly. Worship music, I mean, man, like worship in general, I think requires some of the most is maybe the most vulnerable, exposing thing a person could do. And so I would love songs that help activate that in people more. Yeah, I don't know. Those are a couple thoughts.
That's great. Talk to me too. What does your routine look like, or as best as it can be? Like, how do you keep yourself connected with God? What's your like Bible study? Like, what are you reading? What's God impressing on you? Like, how do you keep all that fresh? Because obviously, without that, songwriting ends up being a pretty difficult thing if you're not keeping connected with God in the midst of it.
It's true, man. I feel like, yeah, in a way, songwriting for me has been a central piece on both sides. So, and it obviously doesn't have to be songwriting. It should be something different for everybody. But when I feel far from God, I write, you know. And then when I feel close to God, I write, and I sing, and it's almost like a spiritual practice for me, beyond craft, like we talked about, beyond a measurable goal. For even though I'm in this place in my life where I have those put on me, you know, I have to turn in songs. I have partners, I have things, but it's a spiritual practice for me to keep all that stuff way further down the list. And what I want is to commune with God, and whether I'm coming at it from the side where I'm singing because I believe, or I'm coming at it from the side where I'm singing until I believe, you know, I need to sing. I need to sing. So I've found that is just a very good thing for me. It helped me center, let go of things. Like, you have to be open. There has to be an open path for fear to, you know, get out and faith to come in. You know, you have to be able to transmit things. And so, again, I think for everybody it's going to be different, but God's kind of slowly continues to show me how important that is for me. So I just make a practice of doing that. I also I go on walks a lot. You know, there is something about putting yourself in a space, or maybe like doing something that doesn't require a lot of you mentally, but it you know, and it it, it like activates you, just mind, body, and soul. And so for me, walking has a way of doing that. Kind of priming the pump, maybe creatively, or it's a good palate cleanser. So if I'm praying about something, I'll just go on a walk and do it, you know, and then all of a sudden I'm talking to God, and and then everything starts to look like God, you know, because it's starting to ooze out of me. So I'm noticing just how beautiful those flowers are, and like, everything becomes a story, and I see that person, I pass that person who's on a run, and you know, I think about them maybe the way that God would, and or honestly, you get this sense about them, and you just pray for them as they go by, or like you put yourself in a position. You're communing with God in the day to day. To me, that's the goal, right? It's to, even in songwriting and everything, how do we find God in the mundane? You know, how do we see God in what we perceive to be the natural? You know, if the natural can become supernatural for us, I think we're starting to do things the way Jesus did. And so that's how I want to write songs. That's how I want to see people. And then it all starts to flow together. So then I have this like encounter with a flower that I think is awesome. And so I write it down. And then 3 weeks later, I'm writing a song, and I play this little melody, and it feels like a garden, you know? Well, what does that mean? I don't know, but it just feels, yeah, it feels like something's growing. It's a beautiful sound, you know, and it reminds me of the flower I saw. It's like, whoa, okay, that's a verse, you know, that's a verse to a song. And so, yeah, I think it's important to have some practices that help engage you in spiritual, in your spiritual side, you know. Yeah.
So, I think last year I was talking to James Duke about the song "Step Into the Light," and he was talking about how that came about. And one thing that stuck out to me,
Yeah.
he said one thing about Sean is he's not just a singer that kind of plays guitar. He's like really a guitar player. Like he kills on guitar, but then he switches over to like keys, and he's just as proficient. And and coming from him, I know he would say like, "Nah,
Yeah,
that guy sucks,"
that's
or
a
not. So
very great compliment. Yeah, he
so what is your like primary instrument? Like, what did you start on? Like, how did you come up?
yeah. Well, this gets us into some interesting territory that I'm still daily processing. But I started on guitar. Guitar was my entryway into this realm of music, you know, this language that I feel like I can finally understand. You know, I think that for a young angsty teen, that was like a very big deal, you know, and it ended up being guitar. And so, I mean, guys, I'd come home from school. I didn't give a crap about anything else. I'd just go into my room, pick up an electric guitar, and just play and play and play and figure it all out. And I mean, 5 hours at a time. And my parents were great with feed me whatever they could fit through like the crack of my door, you know, like Pop Tarts or something. I would just see a little plate like slide through. So I went through, I mean, years of just really, really uh, putting in the work of what it means to get a better handle on an instrument, and that was guitar. And I had lessons too. So in terms of proficiency, guitar is far and away the instrument that I feel most comfortable on. And I spent years playing guitar before I ever started to, I guess, sing or lead worship or something. Even in college, I was more known in my music communities as the guitar guy. Like those are the calls I would get. Hey, like he's great. Call Sean or whatever, and I'll be your electric guitar player. So at some point, I just kept getting forced into singing. Some of it was like the classic church stuff that a lot of kids will understand. It's just that youth group thing or ministry thing where you show up and somebody needs to lead worship today. We need we have a drummer and we have a guitar player, but no one's here to sing. And so a little bit of okay, someone's got to do it. I'll go do it. But then also a lot of people, God used a lot of other people to push me into singing and leading worship. And I think we should be very mindful when that's happening in our lives, because oftentimes God uses other people to reveal and anoint in you. Other people see things before you do a lot of times, and that's like a beautiful thing about the community of God. And so years of that was happening, and I guess it's funny now because I'm in a place where what I do the most is the thing that I feel the most uncomfortable with, which is singing. I never saw myself as a singer. I still would not call myself a singer. Like I can maybe sing, but I can't sing. Like I still feel nervous a lot of times walking up to a microphone, and so I think I have it's given me a pretty balanced perspective on gifting and anointing and the differences between those two things, and how together they don't. A complete reliance on God. I went through seasons where I was very confident in my guitar playing to the point where it became something I almost could eliminate God from the equation. And I've never been able to do that with singing because I'm not comfortable with it. So that's taught me a lot about worship leading. So then I guess piano came with worship leading because I actually was really into this band a long time ago where the frontman played a Fender Rhodes. And to me, a Fender Rhodes is like an electric guitar version of, the way that electric guitar relates to an acoustic guitar. To me, is the same way that a Fender Rhodes relates to an acoustic piano. And so I was really drawn to it. And I just went and bought one day and started running my pedal board effects through it, and basically learned how to create soundscapes. And this was 10 years ago. We didn't have pads. We didn't have stuff. So I was even in Bellary, like I was playing piano with a bunch of reverbs and leading worship from like a, atmospheric piano pad that I was just creating in an analog way. And it was super fun. But when in terms of proficiency, I'm much more proficient on guitar. I have a vibe on keys, but you could never get me to. I can't if I had to play a gospel song, I would panic, totally fall apart.
So talk about some of those influences, like especially secular. Can I take a guess at what band you're talking about?
Sure.
Is it? I'm gonna say my number one guess would be Mute Math. Two would be Radiohead. It's got to be one of those two.
Yeah, it was Meat Math for sure.
Okay.
Um, so I was real into their EP and their first self-titled like full length.
Yeah.
Really, just really did something to me. And I loved everything about it. And Paul Meany was doing everything on Fender Rhodes. Just had a way about him as a frontman too that I still really, really value. That was a big band. It's weird whenever I get asked this question. It's hard for me to pull them all in. I I mean, when I was in high school, I was really into classic rock because if you're into guitar, I mean, that was a window in history of American music where sure you needed a great frontman, but you needed a guitar player, you
Yeah.
know? Every amazing classic rock band that everybody knows the names of the guitar players too, you know? It was just such an important piece. And it was even not even just like shredding. It was more like, yeah, there were no bridges. It was just guitar solos, you know? Every bridge of an awesome classic rock song was just a guitar solo. But I loved classic rock, I think, because it still had there was a lot of melodic nature to the solos. So I loved all that. But then when I got into college, I guess I got into more, um, I don't know, music that kind of spoke to me in a different way, maybe a little bit more artful, um, less like stick it to the man stuff. It's like Mute Math. I loved Death Cab. Uh, I love this story. Death Cab always had such a handle on dynamics, you know, some cinematic stuff, especially from a four piece. You know, it was never bashy. It always got so big, but not without just, it was never overbearing, you know, and they could get so quiet at the drop of a dime. So I loved that. But if you pull away from genre, I think I just loved and still love anything that I just see as believable. You know, if I look at it and you just get that thing in your gut that's like, I believe that guy, or like, I believe that girl. What she's doing, the way she's singing is coming from a real place. It matches the tone of the music. It feels like there's this synergy. It's speaking a language. Anything like that, I'm totally game for. I just, yeah,
That's
that's it.
interesting you say that because for me, one thing I admire about you and I think of is sincerity. And I
Mm,
know I've talked to other people, and that's one thing that always people say about you is, man, he's sincere on and off the stage, off the platform. And so to hear you say that is pretty cool, kind of shows what you admire kind of comes
it
out
is cool.
in you.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I mean, I sure hope, especially now that, I mean, most of what I'm doing uh, in music is leading people in worship, you know, using music to create a space for people to commune with God. That's gotta be sincere. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. And it's getting easier and easier for people to just sniff it out when it's not. And like, what are we doing? What are we doing? If it's not, you know, we make sure that that's the safety that's covering the spaces we're in. It's like, you belong here. Um, I want you to know you belong way before there's any sense of how you should behave or what you should sound like. Or I just, this is a space for you because God's heart is after you, and you can bring whatever you bring, because what we're trying to do is lay it all down. And so that, I think, all of our guards are up. I mean, all the time. Uh, and part of leading worship is helping to people to drop their shoulders and take a deep breath and say, okay, actually, I think God is here, and I think maybe I'm crazy, but I think he wants to hear me sing. And I think, so I'm going to give it a go. And I'm going to tell him that he's beautiful. And, you know, I think I'm hearing him telling me that everything's going to be all right. And so I don't care what the person next to me sounds like. I don't care what they think I sound like. We're getting to a different zone. You know, that's love. That's love. That's the deep stuff. When I proposed to my wife, you know, we were so dialed in. We were alone, but we could have been in front of 10,000 people. I wouldn't have cared what I sounded like or what I looked like. This is love, you know? So I feel like that's a zone I try to be in. So it's cool to hear you say that. You can sense that.
Before we wrap up, just some random quick questions that I've just
Oh,
wanted to
crap.
ask you. First off, do you surf or skate?
So I broke my collarbone skating.
Wow.
So that shows you how. But I grew up in Florida, so look, I would never profess to be a surfer, but we did surf growing up. My dad grew up in Satellite Beach, so he's like a legit surfer, and we were coastal kids, and what we thought about for free time, even all the way growing up, all the way in college. When I had free time, I went to the beach. You know, that's what you did. There was nothing else better to do. I feel like the ocean is a spiritual place for me too, and so I'd love to get to the point where I could, whatever my standards are, I could say, yeah, I'm a surfer. But totally, like I can paddle out and have fun and not look like a total goober.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The second question, your guitar, we posted a picture of you playing that guitar, and everybody asked about it. It's like a offset Telecaster looking thing. What
Oh,
what
totally.
what is it? Like what brand is it?
Okay. So it's a Nash guitar. Man, I've had it forever, and it's a little bit of a hybrid of sorts, right? Because it has the offset body. It feels so like I guess, you know, the bridge pickup is a straight up telly pickup. So it has a lot of telly sensibilities about how it sounds, but then the neck pickup is a Lawler, like humbucker, um, Filtertron-esque thing. So it's his own deal. Like if you went to the Lawler pickup website, you know, you would see his renditions of more of the classic Filtertrons, but then he'd also have this humbucker deal. That's what's that's what's in the neck. And so they complement each other in unique ways. They're like, I've never really played a guitar that I really like how the neck feels, but I also just have a relationship with it. You know, I've just had it forever, and so I can do what I need to do with it. I feel like the neck pickup has a lot of clarity for being a humbucker pickup, and then which I like, and then the bridge is just telly, like raw guitar. Feels like such a raw guitar, so I get sloppy and wild with it, and I can throw it around. It's pretty lightweight, so I play that and this other guitar that my buddy Andy made me the most. And it has a little bit of a Gretsch kind of sensibility about it. And it's just all black. So you may have seen pictures of that too. But those are kind of my go-to. Yeah.
Is that electrical tape? Did you write? What does it say? Sing
Yeah.
on there?
Yeah, um, it just says sing, and like I like that word, you know. It's so there's so much power in just opening up and letting something out. And so I just wrote it on my guitar.
Cool. And so you said you're going on tour with Ren Collective?
Yeah, man. All like March, April, May. We're pretty much everywhere, coast to coast. And it's gonna be fun. I've known those guys for a long time. I keep joking that so everybody knows there's a couple different ways to spell Sean, but I spell mine the Irish way. So I feel like we're destined for greatness together. So it should be a blast. I mean, those guys know how to have a good time, and so I appreciate that. I think it'll be a fun, uh, dynamic duo, and yeah, we're going everywhere. So
Do
if
you
it
have
by,
do you have your band lineup for that? Like who's going to be going with you?
that's going to be tricky. We have to do. We're basically doing a 4-piece just because we're pretty just limited with space, and we're still. I mean, we're a support. We're an opening band, But so I still have to figure out some of the details on that. But it'll be my friend Bobby does we've done everything together since the start of my kind of Sean Curran deal, and he plays bass, so he'll be with me. And then I've got a great buddy from church that is gonna play drums with me. His name's Landon, and then we're actually using Pat, the guitar player from Run Collective, is gonna play with us.
Ah,
So it'll be pretty rock and roll, like almost like Muse, We're small band guy Nicholas. I'll be hopping between guitar and piano a lot to kind of cover the holes. But it'll be fun to get creative because I usually play with like a 6-piece. So here we go on to new territory. But it's gonna be great.
That's great.
cool. You want to wrap it up, Ryan?
I mean, now we'll have to edit this. How do we wrap it up? I guess. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. What's the tagline to wrap us up? Man, this is, I don't know. I appreciate the conversation, Sean. This has been really insightful. And yeah, as much as Chris said, I think love the heart behind everything that you're sharing. And yeah, really appreciate being able to chat with you.
Thanks for having me on. You guys are awesome. Thanks for listening to me ramble.